There is a well-known saying that goes, always give the hardest job to the laziest person because they will find the easiest way to do it. What is the best real-life example to this you have seen? I once was a temp at a tiny office on a construction site in around 2003. I was only there for one day while the regular person was on some training. They sat me down and told me that I just need to copy all these numbers from one program to another. So I selected them, hit Ctrl C and Ctrl V. They stared at me. Turns out about 60% of this woman's time had been spent manually typing numbers from one place to another. Had a manager that would manually delete every email from his work inbox. I'll never forget the look he gave me when I clicked the Select All button that was clearly visible the entire time. There are way too many people who think computers are just typewriters with a bunch of weird extra shit on them. There was an overworked lady who worked at my company who could hit shift to copy multiple lines of Excel at once. She saw me do it once and said, "Lady, wait, how did you do that?" Me, "Do what, lady?" "Copy multiple lines at once." Me, "You just click the first line, hit shift, then click the last line. Why? How have you been doing it?" Lady looks at me in disbelief. "I've been copying it line by line. It takes me hours to do it every week." I took the next few hours to show her a bunch of features in Excel and computers in general. I think I saved her 20 hours per week that day. That's not her being lazy. That's her being stupid. I once watched a girl type a list of numbers into an Excel spreadsheet and then pull out her calculator to add them up. Boss hated Excel to the point where he didn't want us using formulas because you can't trust them to be right. So we needed to do all the calculations by hand or on a calculator. He would give me a spreadsheet once or twice a week that required, let's say, 45 seconds to do, but maybe 7 hours by hand, and he told me to go to Starbucks or something and crank it out. He thought that since I passed it as values and he couldn't see the formulas that I did it by hand, when really I just did it in 45 seconds, sent an email on delay for 7 hours, and studied for the next semester. Dude was the poster boy for failing upwards in your career. First day of internship, he told me with a straight face he was a work harder, not smarter kind of guy. Go to Starbucks or something and crank it out. I was going to say how pissed I'd be, but if he lets you actually leave, I would just enjoy my free day off. My dad didn't want me to get my son a computer back in the 90s. Because he thought it was cheating. My dad, being of the greatest generation, had done everything by hand and had done complicated calculations with a slide rule, a compass, and a sextant. He worried that my son never learned how to do anything and would grow up ignorant. I got my son the computer anyway, and today he's a highly paid and respected corporate executive. Unfortunately, my dad died before I could say "told you so." In high school, in order to take any computer classes, you had to take typing and a class on PowerPoint. You had to submit your PowerPoint projects into a shared folder in the network. Our teacher also had all of the completed projects in that folder. My friends and I found them in the first couple weeks, so we went through and changed the color scheme and the name of all the projects. We spent the rest of the year playing emulators and submitting our projects at the end of the class. Oh, don't worry, this wasn't done in Excel. I used OpenOffice. That probably wouldn't work, would it? A month later, hey, Excel is part of Office, dummy. Worked as a cashier during the holiday season back when I was 16. The supermarket was selling drinks by the boxes, and at that time, we only had barcode scanners that was at the front of the computer. No gun-type scanners existed. I was lazy and didn't want to carry boxes up to the scanner. So I politely asked my customers if I could carve out the barcode from their box to scan and keep. Some agreed, some didn't want to, but eventually I managed to amass all the barcodes needed, labeled them, and kept them in a file for easy reference. Apparently, some other cashiers got green-eyed at my smart move and complained to the chief cashier, who promptly lectured me on bullshit alert, how it's dangerous for me to scan such barcodes, as I might scan the wrong thing. She told me to throw it all away and carry the boxes like I was meant to. I mean, I was young, so I could, but the other cashiers were older and some were elderly and needed the customers themselves to help carry the boxes to the scanner. But whatever, I guess jealousy trumps common sense. Tons of stores do that just with a printed out sheet. You could have taken pictures of all the barcodes and made a beautifully labeled collage. This is the sort of thing that really gets on my nerves. When others oppose your idea, not because it is wrong, but just because they didn't come up with it first. I used to memorize barcodes back in my cashiering days for the same reason. Sure, I can leave that case of water, but I don't want to. This seems to be my story. I used to do exactly the same, but my manager told me that we always have to leave boxes, since sometimes customers hide things underneath them. So we got rid of all the collected barcodes. Anyway, since I really hate to leave boxes of bottles all day, I managed to memorize most of the barcodes, or at least the most common ones. I used to deliver beer. I didn't like delivering beer. I may have ended up with 30 stops in a day, including deliveries that the customer would call in to our office for. I used to bring extra beer and blank invoices with me on the truck to prevent having to drive back to my warehouse to deliver one keg to a place that I was currently across the street from. 7 years later, the driver of that route is still doing that. Question for you. I've heard delivering beer is a shitty job. What makes it so undesirable? Why is it worse than delivering office supplies or water jugs? Most bars don't have elevators and have weird stairways instead. Pulling a keg upstairs sucks. Combine that with stacking kegs in confined spaces, which can make lifting responsibly suck. Kegs on dollies can also be scary. If there is no hook to keep it in place, the thing have a mind of their own. Almost killed the busboy who didn't listen when I yelled down the stairs. The worst part? People on the street saying, "Buddy, you can put that in my trunk." In high school, we had to do 4 book reports every year. A friend of mine did this on each Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit freshman year and turned in the same 4 book reports for the rest of his time in high school. You switched English teachers every year, so no one ever caught on. I was never brave enough to try the same thing. Wouldn't have worked at my high school. English teachers were all buddies and I liked to talk about what their students wrote. When my kids were in grammar school, I made them CDs with classic audiobooks on them. They listened to them at bedtime. Found out my son wrote 6th and 8th grade papers on Hunt of the Baskervilles from the audiobooks alone. Never read the book, just remembered the story. Was tiling a bathroom floor. One young guy I was working with was cleaning up when we were done. I told him to take the leftover tile back downstairs to the truck and then went back to cleaning what I was doing. 10 seconds later, I hear this huge crash and then a soft, "All right." He had gone out onto the balcony and dropped them down to the truck, shattering over $100 worth of tile. He said he thought it would be faster. He wasn't exactly wrong. I loved it. All right, that's me on my sleepy days. I remember having to peel 20 kilos of charred eggplant at a restaurant I worked in. I asked the chef if there was an easier way to do it. His reply was, "Yep, get some else to do it." Please tell me you then said, "In that case, here you go." My friend would take his baby's clothes off when he fed him. Next level brilliant. Spray the kid off after. Good plan, until that baby starts preschool and proceeds to strip off his clothes every day before lunch. Mother, remove my garments. It's time to feed.